So let's talk about one of the most provocative and honestly misunderstood questions out there. A claim that's often used to stir things up. Are Jesus and Satan brothers? It's a huge question, right? So let's get into it. Because the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It actually all hinges on two completely different ways of thinking about what it even means to be related. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the brother's accusation head on. Then, we're going to dig into why it sounds so shocking in the first place. From there, we'll explore a totally different framework for this relationship and see how it just changes everything. And we'll wrap it all up with what this is really all about, the massive difference between where you come from and who you are. All right, first things first, let's start with the accusation itself. This is the claim you've probably heard. And let's be honest, it's designed to be a little jarring. So there it is, the question in its simplest form. But you gotta understand, when critics of the Latter-day Saint faith bring this up, they're not just asking for a family tree. Nope, this is a very pointed, very loaded accusation. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The question usually isn't asked out of genuine curiosity. The source material points out that it's often used as a weapon, a way to suggest there's some kind of theological scandal going on. It's a deliberate attempt to create controversy and make people uncomfortable. So, to really get what's going on, we need to kind of pop the hood and look at the engine of this argument. Let's unpack the hidden assumptions that make this accusation sound so scandalous in the first place. See, the crucial point here is what the accusation implies. When a critic says they are brothers, they want you to believe a few things without actually saying them. That Jesus and Lucifer are equals on some level. That Christ is somehow dirtied by this family connection. And ultimately, that his unique divinity is somehow reduced. And this whole thing hinges on a key philosophical idea, ontology. Now, it sounds super academic, I know, but all it really means is the study of being, like what things fundamentally are. And the entire brothers accusation is built on a very specific idea about what it means to be related to someone. And this just perfectly illustrates the clash of worldviews. On the left, you've got the critic's assumption. Brotherhood means equality. If two people have the same parents, they must be the same kind of being. But on the right, we see the framework from the source material. Here, brotherhood simply means a common origin. It says nothing about their nature, their choices, or their ultimate destiny. So now, let's explore a completely different way of looking at this. The source material calls it the restored framework, and it's absolutely essential for understanding the Latter-day Saint perspective on this. In this framework, God is the literal father of every spirit that has ever existed. But, and this is the key, that doesn't make everyone equal, not even close. Christ is set apart. He is the firstborn, uniquely divine, the chosen one from the very beginning. Everyone else, including Lucifer, is another spiritual creation, but they are not, and they never were Christ's equal. So, calling them brothers in the way a critic intends is what philosophers call a category error. It's like asking about the color of a sound or the weight of a musical note. You're applying rules from one category, human biological brotherhood, to a completely different category, divine spiritual parentage. The terms just don't map onto each other. Okay, so now that we have both frameworks on the table, let's revisit that original question. You're about to see why, from this second perspective, the accusation completely and totally falls apart. The logic here flows in a pretty straightforward way. If God is the father of all spirits, and Christ is the unique divine firstborn, and Lucifer is another spirit who chose to rebel, well, then the conclusion is unavoidable. The relationship is one of hierarchy and contrast, not equality. And here is the core analogy from the source material that just makes it all click. Blaming Christ for Satan's choices is like blaming a model child for the criminal actions of their sibling. In any human family, we understand this distinction perfectly. Moral responsibility is individual. Lineage doesn't transfer guilt. This reinforces a central idea, agency. Christ's perfection isn't an accident of birth or a result of his environment. According to this doctrine, it flows from his own eternal nature and, crucially, his own choices. His goodness is entirely his own, completely independent of the choices of anyone else. And this all leads to the final and maybe most important point. The entire misunderstanding boils down to one thing: the difference between where you come from and who you choose to be. So the crucial point is this. The source argues that the restored theology separates three concepts that critics intentionally fuse together. First is origin, where all spirits come from.
Second is nature, their inherent qualities, where Christ is seen as uniquely divine. And third is destiny, what they become through their own choices and agency.
And when you pull those three ideas apart, the original accusation just dissolves. The brothers' claim only has power if you fuse origin, nature, and destiny into one. Once you separate them, the argument has nothing left to stand on. So it all comes down to this one question. Does lineage define divinity? According to the framework we've explored, the answer is a clear no. What truly matters isn't the family tree, but the character you build and the choices you make.